The Galactic Council had gathered in their grand orbital palace, a structure that floated silently above Earth's moon. The palace was a marvel of technology, its shimmering surface reflecting the light of distant stars. Inside, the council members sat in a large circular chamber, their holographic forms flickering faintly as they discussed matters of cosmic importance. Today, however, their attention was focused on a single planet, Earth. Jacob stood at the center of the room, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. He was a tall man with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. As Earth's newly appointed ambassador, he had been sent to represent humanity in what many believed would be a routine negotiation. But this was no ordinary meeting. The Council had called him here to deliver an ultimatum, one that could change the course of human history. The leader of the Council, a towering alien with smooth silver skin and glowing green eyes, leaned forward in his seat. His voice echoed through the chamber, deep and resonant. "Jacob of Earth," he began, "the time has come for your species to make a choice. You have expanded beyond your solar system, consumed resources without restraint, and disrupted the balance we have maintained for millennia. This cannot continue." Jacob felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had known this moment might come, but hearing it spoken aloud made it feel more real, more immediate. Beside him, Samantha whispered urgently. She was his advisor, a woman with dark hair and a calm demeanor that masked a brilliant mind. "They're giving us two options," she murmured. "Compliance or extinction." The council leader continued, his tone cold and unyielding. "You will dismantle your fleet of interstellar ships. You will cease all exploration and colonization efforts outside your solar system. Failure to comply will result in consequences you cannot withstand." The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Jacob took a deep breath. He knew the stakes. If Earth agreed to these terms, it would mean the collapse of their economy, the loss of access to vital resources, and widespread suffering for billions of people. But if they refused, the Council's massive fleets would descend upon them, armed with weapons far beyond anything humanity could counter. Samantha tugged gently at his sleeve. "We can't accept this," she said softly, her voice barely audible. "If we do, Earth won't survive. We'll be signing our own death warrant." Jacob nodded slightly, keeping his expression neutral. He couldn't show weakness, not here. Not now. "Your demands are clear," he said aloud, addressing the council. "But I must ask, what right do you have to dictate the future of my people?" The council leader's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Jacob thought he saw a flicker of anger. "We are the stewards of this galaxy," the alien replied. "Your actions threaten the stability of countless worlds. We cannot allow chaos to spread." Jacob clenched his fists behind his back. The council's words were laced with arrogance, as if they believed themselves superior to all other species. But he also knew they weren't wrong about one thing. Humanity's expansion had caused disruption. Still, the idea of bowing to their will went against everything he believed in. As the meeting drew to a close, the council dissolved their holographic forms, leaving Jacob and Samantha alone in the vast, empty chamber. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Samantha broke the silence. "What now?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. Jacob turned to face her, his jaw set with determination. "Now," he said firmly, "we prepare for war." Back on Earth, the atmosphere was tense. News of the Council's ultimatum spread quickly, sparking heated debates in every corner of the globe. In a dimly lit war room beneath New York City, leaders from different nations gathered around a large table. Maps of Earth and its colonies in space were projected onto the walls, glowing faintly in the low light. The air was thick with tension as voices rose and fell in argument. Daniel, the head of Earth's defense coalition, stood at the front of the room. He was a broad-shouldered man with short brown hair and a stern expression. His voice carried authority as he spoke. "We can't give in," he said firmly. "If we dismantle our ships and stop exploring, we'll be cutting off our only chance to survive. Humanity has always pushed forward, no matter the odds. We can't stop now." On the other side of the table, Laura leaned forward, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She was a diplomat known for her calm and practical approach. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a tight bun, and her sharp green eyes scanned the room. "I understand how you feel," she said, her tone measured but firm. "But let's be realistic. The Council's fleets are massive, and their technology is far ahead of ours. If we fight, we might lose everything. Our planet, our people, our future." The room erupted into chaos as others joined the debate. Some agreed with Daniel, shouting about freedom and survival. Others sided with Laura, warning of the destruction that would follow if humanity defied the Council. It was clear that no one could reach a decision easily. Outside the war room, the streets of New York were alive with protests. Crowds filled the sidewalks, carrying signs and chanting slogans. Some called for peace, urging the government to comply with the Council's demands. Others shouted for defiance, refusing to back down. Among them was Sarah, a young woman with fiery red hair and a determined look in her eyes. She held up a sign that read, "No surrender," and led a group of protesters in a chant. Her voice rang out loud and clear, drawing attention from passersby. Inside the war room, Jacob listened to the arguments with growing frustration. He had returned from the Council's palace just hours ago, and the weight of the situation pressed heavily on him. He knew the decision they made here would shape the destiny of humanity, but how could they choose between two terrible options? Samantha sat quietly beside him, observing the chaos with a thoughtful expression. Finally, she leaned over and whispered, "We need a third option." Jacob turned to her, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" he asked. She gestured toward the maps on the wall. "Look at what we have," she said. "Our colonies in space, our research facilities, even our ingenuity. Maybe we don't have to choose between surrender and annihilation. Maybe we can find a way to fight back without losing everything." Jacob nodded slowly, considering her words. It was a risky idea, but it was the first glimmer of hope he felt since returning from the Council. Still, he knew it wouldn't be easy. They needed allies, resources, and most importantly, time, something they didn't have much of. As the meeting dragged on, the leaders finally agreed to postpone their decision. For now, they would focus on preparing for the worst while exploring any possible alternatives. But as Jacob left the war room and stepped out into the cool night air, he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The Council wasn't likely to wait long before taking action, and when they did, humanity would need to be ready. In the distance, the lights of the city flickered against the dark sky. Somewhere beyond those lights, among the stars, lay the future of humanity, a future that was still uncertain, still hanging in the balance. Jacob stood outside a hidden research facility buried deep beneath the Arctic ice. The cold wind whipped around him, biting at his face as he waited for the heavy metal door to open. When it finally did, a rush of warm air greeted him, carrying with it the faint hum of machinery. He stepped inside, leaving the freezing wilderness behind. The facility was a maze of narrow hallways and brightly lit rooms filled with advanced technology. Scientists moved quickly from one station to another, their faces tense with urgency. At the heart of it all was Emily, a young engineer with short black hair and sharp brown eyes. She was pacing back and forth in front of a large console, her hands gesturing animatedly as she spoke to her team. When she noticed Jacob approaching, she stopped and turned to face him. "Jacob," she said, her tone cautious, "what are you doing here?" He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I need to know what you're working on," he said firmly. "The Council gave us an ultimatum, and we don't have much time. If there's anything here that can help us fight back, I need to see it now." Emily hesitated, glancing at her team before stepping closer to Jacob. "It's called Project Eclipse," she explained quietly. "We've been developing a weapon capable of disrupting the Council's shields and communication systems. It's experimental, but if it works, it could give us an edge." Jacob's eyes widened. "How close are you to finishing it?" he asked. "Not close enough," Emily admitted. We've made progress, but there are still problems. The energy requirements are enormous, and the targeting system isn't reliable yet. Even if we manage to get it working, we'll need a way to deploy it safely. Jacob nodded slowly, thinking through the possibilities. Can you speed things up? He asked. Every day counts. Emily sighed and rubbed her temples. We're already working around the clock, she said, but I'll do what I can. Just know that rushing this could lead to mistakes, and mistakes could mean failure. Jacob placed a hand on her shoulder. Failure isn't an option, he said firmly. If this weapon is our best chance, then we have to take it. Humanity is counting on us. As Jacob left the facility, Emily returned to her work with renewed determination. She gathered her team and outlined a new plan, pushing them to focus on the most critical aspects of the project. Days turned into nights as they worked tirelessly, fueled by coffee and adrenaline. Progress was slow but steady, and soon they began to see results. One evening, as Emily reviewed data on a glowing screen, something caught her eye. A series of calculations showed a potential breakthrough in the targeting system. Her heart raced as she called her team over to examine the findings. Together, they tested the new approach, running simulation after simulation until they were confident it would work. The breakthrough came just in time. News reached the facility that the Council had begun mobilizing its fleets. Time was running out, and Emily knew they couldn't afford to wait any longer. She contacted Jacob immediately, explaining that while the weapon wasn't perfect, it was ready for deployment. When Jacob arrived back at the facility, Emily showed him the final version of Project Eclipse. It was a sleek, compact device designed to be mounted on a starship. Though untested in real combat, it represented humanity's best hope against the overwhelming power of the Council. As Jacob stared at the device, he felt a mix of hope and fear. Hope that this weapon might turn the tide of the coming war, and fear of what might happen if it failed. But one thing was certain: humanity could no longer rely on diplomacy or luck. They would need every advantage they could find, and Project Eclipse was their last, desperate gamble. The attack came without warning. The Council's fleet descended upon Mars like a storm, their sleek ships cutting through the thin atmosphere with terrifying precision. Colonies that had taken decades to build were obliterated in moments. Mining operations, once bustling with activity, were reduced to rubble. The red planet burned under the relentless assault, and the news spread quickly across the solar system. On Earth, panic gripped the population. Screens flickered with images of destruction, and the sound of alarms echoed in military bases around the globe. Jacob watched the reports from a secure command center, his face pale with anger and disbelief. They didn't even give us time to respond, he muttered under his breath. Samantha stood beside him, her hands clenched into fists. This isn't just an attack, she said. It's a message. They want us to know they're serious. Far from Earth, aboard the starship Aurora *, Captain Rachel Hayes prepared her crew for battle. The Aurora * was one of humanity's most advanced vessels, but it was still outmatched by the Council's technology. Rachel, a woman with sharp features and a determined gaze, paced the bridge as her officers worked frantically to track the enemy fleet. We can't let them reach Jupiter, she said firmly. If they take control of the outer planets, we'll lose our supply lines and any chance of holding them off. The Aurora * moved into position near Jupiter's orbit, its engines humming with power. Rachel's voice rang out over the ship's intercom. This is it, everyone. We may not have their numbers or their weapons, but we have something they don't. Heart. Stand your ground and make every shot count. Her words sparked a quiet resolve among the crew, though fear lingered in their eyes. The battle began with a flash of light as the Council's ships opened fire. Their weapons tore through space, leaving trails of destruction in their wake. The Aurora * dodged and weaved, its shields absorbing blow after blow. Rachel barked orders, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Target their lead ship. If we can disable it, the others might hesitate. The crew worked together with practiced efficiency. Missiles streaked through the void, striking the Council's fleet with bursts of flame. For a moment, it seemed like they might hold their own. But then, one of the Council's ships unleashed a devastating barrage that overwhelmed the Aurora's defenses. Alarms blared as the ship shuddered violently, throwing crew members to the floor. Rachel steadied herself against the console, her jaw tight with determination. "We're not done yet," she said. "Launch the drones." Dozens of small, unmanned crafts shot out from the Aurora swarming around the Council's ships. Though individually weak, the drones created chaos, distracting the enemy and forcing them to divert their attention. The distraction gave the Aurora the opening it needed. With precise targeting, the crew fired a concentrated volley at the lead ship, disabling its engines. The Council's formation faltered, and for the first time, they hesitated. Rachel seized the moment. "Fall back," she ordered. "Let's regroup and live to fight another day." As the Aurora limped away from the battlefield, Rachel allowed herself a brief moment of relief. They had bought humanity some time, but the cost had been high. Several crew members had been injured, and the ship's systems were badly damaged. Still, they had proven one thing: the Council wasn't invincible. Back on Earth, Jacob watched footage of the battle with a mix of pride and sorrow. The victory was small, but it was enough to ignite hope in a frightened world. People began to believe that maybe, just maybe, humanity could defy the odds and survive. But as Jacob looked at the faces of those around him, he knew the hardest battles were yet to come. As the war stretched on, cracks began to form within Earth's ranks. Supplies were running low, and the constant pressure from the Council's attacks left many questioning whether defiance was worth the cost. In a sleek office high above the city, William sat at his desk, staring out at the skyline. He was a wealthy industrialist with connections that reached every corner of Earth. His factories had once supplied the military with weapons and ships, but now he wondered if continuing to fight was wise. William picked up his phone and dialed a number he had memorized by heart. When the call connected, a distorted voice answered. "It's done," William said quietly. "I've sent them the plans for our new engine technology. They agreed to protect my assets if I cooperate." The voice on the other end replied with static-laden approval before disconnecting. William leaned back in his chair, guilt gnawing at him, but he told himself it was for the best. If humanity lost this war, at least he would survive. Unbeknownst to William, his betrayal didn't go unnoticed. Across town, Chloe sat in a dimly lit room surrounded by computer screens. She was young, barely out of her teens, but her skills as a hacker were unmatched. Her fingers flew over the keyboard as she sifted through encrypted messages intercepted from secure channels. One message caught her eye: a transfer of classified files to an unknown recipient. Chloe traced the source and found it led straight to William's private server. Her heart raced as she realized what she had uncovered. Without hesitation, she forwarded the evidence to Jacob, attaching a note. "We have a traitor." Moments later, her phone buzzed with a reply. "Thank you," Jacob wrote. "Stay safe." Jacob read the message with mounting anger. He had suspected there might be spies within their ranks, but he hadn't expected someone as influential as William to betray them. Determined to expose the truth, Jacob called an emergency meeting with Earth's leaders. Cameras rolled as he stepped onto a global broadcast stage, flanked by Samantha and other trusted advisors. "People of Earth," Jacob began, his voice steady but filled with resolve. "We are fighting not just for survival, but for freedom. Yet there are those among us who seek to undermine our efforts for personal gain." He paused, letting his words sink in before turning to face William, who had been brought into the room under guard. "William has betrayed us. He gave advanced human technology to the Council in exchange for immunity." Gasps rippled through the audience as cameras zoomed in on William's pale face. "It's not true," he protested weakly, but the evidence Chloe had uncovered was undeniable. Screens displayed intercepted messages and timestamps, leaving no room for doubt. The crowd erupted into shouts of outrage, and William was quickly taken away. The fallout from the betrayal was swift. Public opinion turned sharply against anyone suspected of aiding the enemy. Trust became scarce, and paranoia spread like wildfire. But amidst the chaos, something unexpected happened: unity. People rallied around Jacob and the resistance, vowing to stand together against both external threats and internal corruption. Samantha approached Jacob after the broadcast, her expression grim. "This will give us momentum," she said, "but we can't afford more mistakes. Every decision we make has to be careful and calculated." Jacob nodded, his mind already racing ahead. The war was far from over, and the Council wouldn't stop until humanity was either defeated or destroyed. Betrayal had weakened them, but it had also strengthened their resolve. As Jacob looked out at the determined faces of his team, he knew one thing for certain: they couldn't afford to falter now. With resources dwindling and the Council's attacks growing more frequent, humanity was pushed to its limits. Desperation became the driving force behind innovation. In a small workshop hidden in the mountains, Nathan worked tirelessly alongside a team of engineers. They were developing a new strategy: eye-controlled drones designed to overwhelm the Council's massive fleet. The idea was simple but risky: flood the battlefield with hundreds of small, agile drones that could attack from all directions. Nathan wiped sweat from his brow as he examined the latest prototype. The drone was no larger than a suitcase, equipped with sharp blades and a powerful laser. Its AI brain had been programmed to identify and target enemy ships with precision. "This could work," Nathan said to his assistant, Clara, who stood nearby holding a clipboard. "If we can get enough of them into the fight, they'll confuse the Council's systems." Clara nodded, though her expression remained skeptical. "We've tested them in simulations, but real combat is different. What if they malfunction or turn on us?" she asked. "We don't have time to second-guess ourselves," Nathan replied firmly. "The Council isn't going to wait for us to perfect this. We need to deploy them now." Meanwhile, Emily and her team at the Arctic facility made a breakthrough with Project Eclipse. After weeks of sleepless nights and endless trials, the weapon was finally ready. It wasn't perfect, but it was functional, a device capable of disrupting the Council's shields and communication systems. Emily contacted Jacob immediately, explaining that the weapon could be mounted on the Aurora and used to cripple the Council's forces. Jacob wasted no time. He ordered Captain Rachel Hayes to prepare the Aurora for deployment, ensuring the weapon was installed securely. As the starship's crew worked around the clock, Nathan's drones were loaded onto transport ships and sent to join the fleet. Humanity was about to test its most daring plan yet. On the eve of the mission, Jacob met with Samantha in a quiet corner of the command center. "Do you think this will work?" she asked, her voice tinged with doubt. "I don't know," Jacob admitted, "but it's our best shot. If we fail, Earth won't survive another assault." The next day, the combined fleet launched toward Europa, where the Council had established a key stronghold. The battle began with Nathan's drones leading the charge. Hundreds of tiny machines swarmed the enemy ships, darting between their defenses and striking weak points. The Council's forces scrambled to respond, their advanced weapons struggling to keep up with the chaotic assault. As the drones created chaos, Rachel activated Project Eclipse aboard the Aurora. A pulse of energy surged through space, disrupting the Council's shields and plunging their ships into disarray. For the first time, humanity had the upper hand. The Aurora moved in, firing precise shots at the Council's flagship, while smaller vessels provided cover. The battle was intense, and losses were heavy. Several human ships were destroyed, and countless lives were lost. But the tide had turned. The Council's forces began to retreat, their once unstoppable fleet battered and broken. Rachel's voice rang out over the comms. "We did it. They're falling back." Back on Earth, news of the victory spread like wildfire. People celebrated in the streets, waving flags and cheering for the resistance. For the first time since the war began, hope replaced fear. Jacob watched the celebrations from a window in the command center, his heart swelling with pride. They had defied the odds and proven that humanity could fight back. But even as the world rejoiced, Jacob knew the war wasn't over. The council would regroup and return, stronger and angrier than before. Still, this victory gave humanity something it desperately needed: time to prepare for what came next. The decisive moment came during the Battle of Europa, a frozen moon orbiting Jupiter. The Council's forces had fortified their position there, using it as a staging ground to launch further attacks on Earth's colonies. For humanity, taking Europa was not just a strategic move. It was a symbol of defiance, proof that they could push back against an enemy that seemed unbeatable. The battle began under the cover of darkness, the icy surface of Europa reflecting the faint glow of distant stars. Captain Rachel Hayes led the Aurora into the heart of the conflict, her ship bristling with weapons and carrying the precious payload of Project Eclipse. Around her, Nathan's drones darted through space like angry insects, swarming the Council's fleet and forcing them to divide their attention. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance. As the fighting intensified, Rachel's voice remained calm over the comms. "Hold your positions," she ordered her crew. "We need to get close enough to use the weapon." The Aurora weaved through a storm of enemy fire, its shields flickering but holding steady. Explosions lit up the void as missiles streaked past, narrowly missing the ship. Finally, they were in range. Rachel gave the order, and Emily's team activated Project Eclipse. A pulse of energy surged from the device, invisible to the naked eye, but devastating in its effects. The Council's ships shuddered as their shields collapsed, leaving them vulnerable for the first time. Cheers erupted on the Aurora's bridge, but Rachel silenced them quickly. "Stay focused," she barked. "We're not done yet." The human fleet seized the opportunity, launching a coordinated assault on the crippled Council ships. Missiles and lasers tore through the enemy ranks, turning the tide of the battle. Ground forces, led by Brian, a former soldier turned resistance leader, landed on Europa's surface, securing key positions near the Council's stronghold. The icy terrain made movement difficult, but Brian's determination inspired his troops. They fought fiercely, driving the Council's soldiers back step by step. Back aboard the Aurora, the situation grew dire. The ship sustained heavy damage as the Council's remaining forces regrouped and launched a desperate counterattack. Alarms blared as sparks flew from damaged consoles, and several crew members were injured. Rachel knew they couldn't hold out much longer. "Target their flagship," she commanded. "If we take that down, the rest will fall apart." The Aurora fired everything it had left, a concentrated barrage of weapons aimed at the Council's command ship. The vessel erupted in a brilliant explosion, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The Council's fleet faltered, their coordination crumbling without their leader. One by one, their ships began to retreat, fleeing into the depths of space. Rachel allowed herself a brief moment of relief as the enemy disappeared from view. But the victory came at a cost. The Aurora was badly damaged, and many lives had been lost. Still, the mission had succeeded. Europa was now in human hands, and the Council's grip on the outer planets had been broken. On Earth, Jacob watched the news with a mixture of pride and sorrow. The victory at Europa was a turning point, a clear sign that humanity could stand up to the Council. He addressed the world later that evening, his voice strong despite the fatigue etched on his face. "Today, we proved that we are not powerless," he said. "We showed the Council, and ourselves, that humanity will fight for its survival, no matter the odds." The speech ignited hope across the planet. People celebrated in the streets, lighting candles and singing songs of resilience. For the first time since the war began, the future felt less bleak. But Jacob knew the fight wasn't over. The Council would return, angrier and more determined than ever. Still, the Battle of Europa had given humanity something invaluable. A chance to rebuild, to prepare, and to believe in the possibility of victory. As Rachel guided the battered Aurora back toward Earth, she reflected on the sacrifices made that day. Lives had been lost, and the scars of war ran deep. But amidst the pain, there was also pride. Humanity had defied the odds, claimed a hard-fought victory, and taken one step closer to freedom. The final push toward the Council's central stronghold was humanity's most ambitious and dangerous mission yet. The target was a massive orbital station, a fortress brimming with advanced weapons and shield systems. It was the nerve center of the Council's operations, and taking it down would cripple their ability to wage war. But the odds were stacked heavily against the human fleet. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and running low on resources after months of relentless fighting. Captain Rachel Hayes stood on the bridge of the Aurora, her eyes fixed on the glowing image of the Council's stronghold displayed on the main screen. Her crew worked tirelessly around her, their faces pale but resolute. She knew this mission might be their last. "We'll only have one shot at this," she said aloud, more to herself than anyone else. "If we fail, Earth won't survive another attack." Jacob had entrusted Rachel with the most critical role in the assault, to lead the charge and deliver Project Eclipse directly into the heart of the enemy station. The weapon had been upgraded since its first use, but it still required precise positioning to work effectively. Rachel's plan was simple yet perilous. Pilot the Aurora straight into the stronghold's defenses, using the ship itself as both a shield and a battering ram. As the fleet approached the station, the Council's forces sprang into action. Dozens of sleek alien ships emerged from the shadows, their weapons blazing. The battle erupted instantly, filling space with streaks of light and bursts of fiery explosions. Nathan's drone swarmed ahead of the fleet, creating chaos and drawing fire away from the Aurora. Even so, the flagship took heavy damage almost immediately, its hull groaning under the strain of repeated hits. Rachel gripped the edge of her command console as the ship shook violently. Alarms blared, warning of failing systems and collapsing shields. "Status report," she shouted over the noise. "Our port engines are offline, Captain," replied one of her officers. "Shields are down to 10%. We won't last much longer out here." Rachel clenched her jaw. "Keep us steady. We're not turning back now." She turned to her communications officer. "Tell the rest of the fleet to hold position. Their job is to keep those ships off us while we get inside." The Aurora pushed forward, inch by agonizing inch, through a storm of enemy fire. Its crew fought valiantly, patching breaches and rerouting power to keep the ship operational. Finally, they reached the outer perimeter of the Council's stronghold. The massive structure loomed ahead, its surface bristling with cannons and turrets. Rachel made her decision. "Prepare for collision course," she ordered. Her crew hesitated, staring at her in stunned silence. "You heard me," she said firmly. "This ship is our best weapon now. I'm staying aboard to guide us in. Everyone else, evacuate." Protests erupted across the bridge, but Rachel silenced them with a sharp glare. "That's an order," she said. "Get to the escape pods. Humanity needs you alive." One by one, her crew obeyed, though many did so reluctantly. As the last pod launched, Rachel sat alone in the captain's chair, her hands steady on the controls. She locked the Aurora's trajectory and activated Project Eclipse, ensuring the weapon would trigger upon impact. Tears welled in her eyes as she thought of her crew, her family, and the world she was fighting for. "For Earth," she whispered. The Aurora collided with the Council's stronghold in a blinding explosion of light and energy. The shockwave rippled outward, destroying nearby ships and crippling the station's core. The Council's forces scattered, leaderless, and disorganized. Back on Earth, Jacob received the news with a heavy heart. He had known Rachel personally, respected her courage and leadership. Her sacrifice ensured the survival of billions, but it left a void that could never be filled. In a solemn address to the world, he honored her bravery. "Rachel Hayes gave everything for us," he said. "Her name will live forever as a symbol of hope and defiance." Though the cost was great, the victory was undeniable. The Council's stronghold was destroyed, and their grip on the galaxy was shattered. Humanity had paid dearly, but they had proven themselves capable of standing against even the mightiest foes. As the sun rose over a battered yet hopeful planet, people mourned Rachel's loss while celebrating the freedom she had helped secure.